How do you buy a foreclosure? Well, a lot of people these days are looking for a good deal. And so, undoubtedly, I get a lot of questions about foreclosures. Is it a good deal? How does it work? Well, today in this video, we're going to answer all of those questions. So, it's Wednesday, which means it's another Real Estate Wednesday. If you're new here, my name is Ryan. I run the Top Hat Connections real estate team, serving Tulsa and the surrounding areas. So, whether you're looking to move now or in the future, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Foreclosures. The main thing you need to know is a foreclosure at its core is a bank-owned property that unfortunately the previous owner wasn't able to make the payments for whatever reason and the bank took it back. Now, I should note that I think some people think banks are a little bit predatory in this sense that, oh, that's just, yeah, they're not making their payments, let's foreclose on them right away because we want to make all this money on selling their house. Banks are not in the money or in the business of selling real estate. They don't want to do that. They would much rather you just make your payments on time because it costs them a lot of money, fees, and time to clear your books of your debt and then also sell the house, and hopefully that covers your debt and then they can move on with their life. So keep that in mind. That's the biggest thing with a foreclosure. A bank does not care about the house itself. They don't care about what your situation is, all of that stuff. They only care about money. It's a business transaction for them, right? So there's no emotional connection with a regular resale property. You know, the sellers are like, oh, I paved this driveway myself with my son or whatever. And I remember that tree, I planted that when I was 5 and whatever. All these things that emotionally tie a seller to a house to make them make emotional decisions, that does not apply in a foreclosure situation. The bank only cares about the bottom line, right? So your offer has to be enough to cover what they own the property, and they don't want to be out any money. So keep that in mind when you are making those offers. It doesn't really help to write a love letter of why you love the house and why you really hope they pick your offer. It doesn't help to really waive inspections and stuff like that because they don't really care. Odds are, even with inspections, bank-owned properties or foreclosures typically are not going to fix anything anyway, but there's a caveat to that. I will say it doesn't hurt to ask because we have had situations where a bank was willing to fix stuff, but usually you'll see it in the notes of the house that the bank is selling it as is, they're not doing any repairs, all that whole thing. And sometimes, depending on the foreclosure that you're finding, it may or may not be in the best condition because sometimes the people that got foreclosed on are angry and they kind of destroy the house and do all kinds of horrible things to it. And sometimes they don't, but typically, more often than not, a foreclosure property is going to need some form of work, which can limit your financing options. A home has to meet certain appraisal requirements or safety requirements to meet your loan qualifications. For example, if you're getting an FHA loan, the home has to have flooring. You can't have missing, carpeting or exposed wiring or cracked windows or a bunch of peeling paint because that's a choking hazard, all that kind of stuff. There has to be railing over like any patios and like more than 3 stairs, I think it is, has to have a railing. So there's a lot of things that are safety features that you may not be able to overcome in a foreclosure property, and it would have to be a cash deal. Now, again, a bank does want to get their property sold, so they may have already done some things to make it pass, but there's probably still going to be work needed on these properties. So I'm not going to say it's impossible to buy a foreclosure with a loan because I have done it for clients in the past, but it's not always the case. The other thing to remember is that it may take longer than a typical transaction, and their bank is not going to be using the same contract as the regular resale property. Banks are going to have their own contract. It's very one-sided. It protects them completely. I've seen some crazy things in those contracts, like your earnest money is not non-refundable, and you're not going to get it back, period. If you back out of the contract for any reason, we're keeping your earnest money. So things like that that are in some of those bank contracts. So make sure when you're working with your realtor that you're reading the entire contract before you sign it and your realtor is going over that with you, because that's what I do. And I think people should know what they're signing before they actually sign their life away. Another thing to remember too is because the contract protects the bank so much so, sometimes they can get out of the contract for really any reason. And that can sometimes hurt you in the sense of if you're planning on, I have to be at this house at this time, I got to move at this time for the new job or whatever, or I'm selling my current house, I need to buy this house. sometimes the foreclosure is not the best option because the time frame really doesn't matter because there's a lot of loopholes and things that could happen in a foreclosure transaction that could hinder the closing process, make it take longer, and a bunch of other things. So, three things to take away. I would know that it can't always be financed with a foreclosure. It's very one sided, and the contracts will protect the bank 100%. And number three, it may take longer than your typical real estate transaction. So if you're in a time crunch, a foreclosure may not be the best option. So I hope you learned something today. Share this video with a friend who is thinking about buying a house and is maybe curious about foreclosures. And I will see you in the next video.